This is Amud Yomi for June 8th, which is the 23rd day of Sivan, and the Amud Yomi for today is in Bava, page 39a, and it's in the middle of the idea. So just to start from the idea, which is on the bottom of 38b, so I'll start from there, and I'll announce when we get to the daily Amud. So the idea at the bottom of the Amud of 39b was talking about Rabbi Zera raised an objection from a Mishnah in Ketubot 29a, which stated, and these are the cases of young women for whom there is a fine to be paid to their fathers by someone who violates them. And not only is one who violates a young Jewish woman of unflawed lineage liable to pay this fine, but so is one who engages in intercourse with mamzeret. Mamzeret is a illegitimate child, or with a female Gibeonite, or with a female Samaritan. Rabbi Zera states his objection, and if it enters your mind that Rabbi Meir imposed a monetary fine on them to render them like Gentiles, so too let us find a female Samaritan who is violated. I'm saying violated like intentionally instead of using the R word, because I don't know if it's, it raises any red flags on YouTube, so I'm just saying violated. I think everyone gets the message, which is fine. By rendering her ineligible to receive a fine for the violation, so that people will not consider them regular Jews and will not assimilate with them. Okay, listen, I made this statement, and I made it before, and I'm making it again right now, that I don't agree with everything that... I'm just reading the Talmud. It's not a reflection of what I endorse. I don't always necessarily disagree with everything it says, but I don't always agree, so... especially in these kind of topics. But in any case, the next thing is Abaye said, according to Rabbi Meir, the reason that the sages did not revoke the fine is in order, and now we are on the top of our daily Amud, Bava 39a, top with the words Shelo Yehe Chote Niskar, Shelo Yehe Chote Niskar, that the sinner should not be rewarded. Okay, so basically, there's a concept here in all throughout Shas of Chote Niskar. If someone sins, he shouldn't gain anything. So, if in this case a person is a violator, and he does this violation on women, so if it's a different woman that's maybe not a Jewish, whatever, the fine is still the same as everybody, because no one should feel that they're gaining something by acting like an animal. Worse than an animal, because this person has a mind and is planning it out, and that's the whole thing about human beings. They could be much greater than even angels, so to speak, and even worse than animals. That's a human being. Weiter. The Gemara suggests, but is if that is the reason, let him give the fine to the poor instead of to the Samaritan who he violated to prevent assimilation. If he violates a Samaritan woman and she gets pregnant, and she wants to keep the baby, probably most of them did those days, or maybe even giving it up for adoption. So their concern was that it would be like not a Jewish, or not a fully Jewish, or maybe quasi-Jewish. That's what they're concerned about here. And so they say he should give the money to the poor, so he still has to pay, but he doesn't want to give the Samaritan. I don't understand why giving money to a person is preventing Samaritan. If she's beeped, if she's violated, then that's it. Money's not going to change that. So I don't understand what they were saying here, but whatever. Rav Mari said this is not done because it is money that has no claimants. Since one would not be liable to give it to a specific poor person, the beepist could evade payment by responding to any claimant that he wants to give to a different poor person. The sages upheld the Torah law as it stands, and the fine is given to the Samaritan so that the sinner will not benefit. Okay. Again, I'm just reading it. If we're talking about fines here, it's a good thing that everyone's equal. I think if there is a fine that is imposed for someone who violates, it should be much worse. He should be locked away. Maybe whipped and locked away. But in any case, that's that. And now the new Mishnah. Shor shel pikeh shor shel cheres shel v'koton chayim. Shel cheres shel v'koton shel pikeh pato. If an ox of a halachically competent person gored an ox of a deaf mute, an imbecile or a minor, all of whom are not considered halachically competent, the owner is liable for damages. But if an ox of a deaf mute, an imbecile or a minor, gored an ox of a halachically competent person, the owner of the ox is exempt from liability. Okay. I think they'd be exempt from a lot of stuff. A katana is minor. Cheresh, a deaf mute. Shota is an imbecile. I guess they're just itemizing this one as one of the things. Shor shel cheresh hoyte v'koton shenarach beis din ma'midin lahen aptropus u'ma'idin lahen v'nei b'fnei aptropus. If an ox belonging to a deaf mute, an imbecile or a minor, gored another ox and caused damage, the court appoints a steward for them and warns them. With regard to the ox that gored in the presence of the steward, the ox is thereby rendered a forewarned ox, since the steward is considered its owner, and with regard to the requirement of the verse, and warning has been given to its owner. Exodus 21:29. Nit bakar hacheresh, nishtava shoite v'gdil koton. Chazal tamusoi. Tivrei Reb Meir b'Yossi Omer harehu b'cheskasoi. If after the ox was rendered forewarned in this manner, the deaf mute regained his hearing, or the imbecile became halachically competent, or the minor reached the age of majority, the ox has thereby reverted to its status of innocuousness. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir, who maintains that the ox had the status of a forewarned ox only while it was under the custody of the steward. Rabbi Yossi says it retains its previous status of being forewarned. Shor ha'itzdadin eino chayav mita shilem al ki yigach v'lo sheyagichuhu. If a stadium ox, meaning one that is trained to fight in a stadium, gores and kills a person, it is not liable to be put to death, that is stated, and if an ox gores a man or a woman, Exodus 21:28. This is referring only to an ox that gores in its own initiative, but not to the case of an ox where others induced it to gore. Therefore, if the owner, I would think the opposite. If it's a stadium ox, you should keep that thing locked up because it's going to gore. Alright, they're saying the opposite here. They're saying it was induced to gore, and therefore, whatever. Therefore, the owner of a stadium ox, which is trained to gore, is exempt from liability. If it's trained to gore, then why is the owner letting it out? You should be more... I think I'd have agreement with many people on this. If it's a trained ox, and you let it out, and it gores, then it shouldn't be exempt. It should be more liable. Because you should expect it to gore. It's trained to gore. It says it right here openly, which is trained to gore. Alright, whatever. It exempt from liability, even if it does. Okay, Gemara. Zog the Talmud, Hagavikashim Amud, Shosh Lecheresh Lecheresh Sheno Shosh Lecheresh Lecheresh Mamitin Abitropos Lotam Legavoy Skupoy Masepo Shosh Lecheresh Lecheresh Shenogach based in Mamitin Abitropos Umaidin Lohem Mipnei Abitropos Alman Umaidin Lohem Abitropos, says Legavos Migufo. The Gemara comments, this matter itself is difficult. First, the Mishnah said, if an ox of a deaf mute, an imbecile or a minor gored an ox of a lawfully competent person, the owner of the ox is exempt from liability. Apparently, the court does not appoint a steward for the owner of an innocuous ox for the purpose of collecting damages from the proceeds of the sale of its body. But say the latter clause of the Mishnah, if an ox belonging to a deaf mute, an imbecile or a minor, gored another ox and caused damage, the court appoints a steward for them and warns them with regard to the ox that gored in the presence of the steward. Apparently, the court appoints a steward for the owner of an innocuous ox for the purpose of collecting damages from its body. Amarava haki katani im hu chuzku nagachonin mamidin lehem abitrapus umiidin lehem bifnei abitrapus umashavin lehem muad t'chiadam v'nagach l'shalem me'aliyom. Rava said that this is what the Mishnah is teaching. A steward is not appointed to enable collection of compensation from the bodies of an innocuous oxen, but if they have acquired the reputation of being habitually going oxen. As this was not an isolated incident, the court appoints a steward for the owners and warns them in the presence of the steward, and thereby renders the oxen forewarned. This is so that when one of the oxen gores again, the owner will be liable to pay compensation from his superior quality property, and not only from the proceeds of the sale of the goring ox. Me'aliyas man, Rabbi Yochanan amal, me'aliyas lisoimin, Rabbi Yossi Yochanan amal, me'aliyas abitrapus. The Gemara asks, from whose superior quality property is compensation collected for damage caused by a forewarned ox belonging to minor orphans? Rabbi Yochanan says, from the superior quality property of the orphans. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina says, from the superior quality property of the steward. The Gemara asks, but did Rabbi Yochanan actually say these? But does not review this says that Ravasi says the court does not attend to the property of orphans to have them pay a debt unless interest is eroding their estate. In other words, in a case where the orphan's father borrowed money from a Gentile with interest, the court ensures that a debt is paid from the orphan's property, since if they wait to pay the debt, it will grow dramatically. Apparently, in other cases, the court does not collect from their property. And Rabbi Yochanan says the court collects from them either to pay a debt recorded in the document that has the payment of interest stipulated in it, in order to ensure that the interest does not diminish the value of their estate, or for the payment of a woman's marriage contract due to their interest in not paying for her sustenance. A widow can claim her marriage contract from her deceased husband's property, and as long as she does not receive it, her husband's heirs are responsible for providing her sustenance. In a case where the heirs are minor orphans, the court collects payment of the marriage contract from the orphan's property, so that they will not have to pay for her sustenance. In the interim, evidence Rabbi Yochanan holds that with the exception of these two cases, the court does not collect debts from the property of orphans. Eifoch. Rabbi Yochanan amar Elias b'tropsin. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina amar Elias Yisoimin. The Gemara answers, reverse the opinions. Rabbi Yochanan is the one who says that payment for damage caused by a forewarned oxen is collected from the superior quality property for the steward. And Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina is the one who says that it is collected from the superior quality property of the orphans. Rabbi Mishum the Kashia and Rabbi Yochanan B'Shabbos Leib. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina Toim. Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina Nayanahu V'Neches Le'um Kededina. Rabbi said in response, due to the difficulty created by the contradiction between the statement of Rabbi Yochanan here and the statement of Rabbi Yochanan there, you render Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina mistaken by attributing an opinion to him that is not the halacha. Wasn't Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina a judge who delved into the complexities of the halacha? El ha'olam moitepoch u'mazik shani Rabbi Yochanan amar Elias Yisoimin. The Amud Elias b'tropus. Rather, one can resolve the contradiction in another manner. Actually, do not reverse the opinions. And the resolution of the contradiction is that although Rabbi Yochanan holds that debts are not collected from the property of minor orphans, the halacha with regard to one who causes damage to another by not safeguarding his animal is different. And Rabbi Yochanan says that compensation is collected from the superior quality property of the orphans, because you say it should be collected from the superior quality property or stored. Whatever it says after that, I'm not sure, but I'll have to find it out some other time.